we'll get right to questions. We'll start with Jason Kersey and then go to Joe Bettner. Jason?
Hey, Alex. Lincoln has talked a lot about when he hired you, the main thing he was looking for was not necessarily scheme, but culture. He wanted to change the culture. So I was wondering, what was your pitch to him on that front in terms of the culture you wanted to establish, and how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, I think, one from an experience standpoint, haven't done it at another place and different program, and maybe a different state of the program, but the commonality in terms of specific to a side of football, that the proof was kind of, I guess, in the pudding. I mean, he had seen it. So in terms of convincing him that way, there was substance behind it, I guess, to lead off with, in terms of the ability to, in a relatively short period of time, and you're never there, but to start flipping the script in terms of production on the field. And then explain, simply that, how we did it was not with X's and O's. It was with a constant message. It was with an approach, we call it preloading, from a diversity response, for instance. It was the small, slow, daily steps in terms of our communications with the players. It was not just in the meeting room, as critics, but in the meeting room as motivators, guys that inspire, guys that discipline. And oh, by the way, yes, we do coach. And so kind of in that order. And so we talk about defensively, our chief, job as coach is motivate, inspire, discipline, and ultimately coach. And so, so those were some of those things, but it's one thing to talk about, it's another thing to go do it. And it takes time. And then, I guess, some semblance of patience, which is a difficult thing for everybody, and certainly within these walls, much more than on the outside, even. But no, those are some of those things.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Okay, Joe Bettner and then Eric Bailey.
Alex, kind of along those lines of just like the culture around this football team, you obviously, 2 months ago lose to Iowa State. As you kind of look back at that game and see where this defense has grown, what sticks out to you about this group and their ability, I guess, to respond from that start to get back into a Big 12 championship game?
Yeah, well, I mean, kind of the unfortunate part. I mean, fortunate we're in this situation that you get to replay another opponent, because that means you're in the championship game. But the unfortunate part is turning on that film. And so what I see, specific to me, our coaching. I mean, we got outcoached, we got outplayed, in every facet, from pass game, run game, penalties, production, turnovers. And so, thankfully it was, a couple months ago, and you say you moved on from it. And, thankfully we did, because that's the appropriate thing to do, but you immediately rehash those things. And so again, what stands out on film, is myself in particular being outcoached. And so you understand the challenge for Saturday is, to ensure you don't say that, Saturday afternoon.
Thanks, Alex.
Eric Bailey and then Ryan Aber.
Hey, Alex, can you talk a little bit about NRK? Just a young man who's only had 10 games experience of football. And then also some of the kids that didn't have a 2020 season. What's it going to be like getting them acclimated pretty quickly to 2021?
Sure. I think in our NRK's case, I mean, you see, potential, and in all cases, whether you play 40 games in high school or, like you're saying, 10, it still comes down to some level of potential at that age, meaning, do they have the speed potential, the size potential, and that's across the class. Do they have the speed potential and size potential with the development of the University of Oklahoma to be elite college football players? And so, he's one of those guys from a size standpoint. It checks the box. From an athletic standpoint, we think that it's a very high ceiling, and part of that is his makeup. It's not just the measurables, or the film that shows some explosion. It's the conversations that we've had. It's his desire, his want to, and what you didn't want to do this year is you didn't want to punish those individuals that didn't play, if you felt like you had the appropriate evaluation of them prior to. So in other individuals' cases, like Damon and Kelvin, who didn't have a chance to play this fall, you looked at it through that lens. Are we confident in our evaluation based on junior film? Some guys get hurt as seniors, so I mean, it's not as if those things have never taken place before. But that's what we're required of. And then there's other instances where you said, I think we've talked maybe last week about it or something along those lines, was be honest with yourself if you can't stand on the table and say that, based on this evaluation, we think they can be a high level athlete at Oklahoma. If we can't say it, don't pretend like you can, And so in every instance this year, with a high level of confidence, we thought those individuals were, quality students, quality athletes, and with our development, we thought they could be high end guys.
Thank you, Alex.
Sure.
Ryan Aber and then Kerry Murdoch.
Yeah, Alex, in the secondary specifically, how much better equipped or better prepared do you feel like y'all are now, especially with some of those younger guys that's roles have grown since the first meeting, to defend Iowa State and specifically try to slow down Charlie Kolob?
Yeah, the ability to play, and not just play, but get quality snaps out of a number of individuals at all levels of our defense. But as you ask about the secondary, that when you do go back to that game, it was basically a one deep situation for us. Now we feel more comfortable putting more individuals in the game, but ultimately the challenge is still there. It couldn't be more impressed with Collard. It couldn't be more impressed with their ability to use matchups, their ability to make plays, and obviously a quarterback that has the ability to extend plays and probably is unique. You look at their sack totals on the year, and find open guys in the pass game. And so, whoever's on the field is going to have a major challenge. And so to suggest that with more bodies, the degree of difficulty goes down, that would be inaccurate. But with that, though, rep counts change, and so we'll be excited to certainly put more guys on the field over the course of a 60-minute ball game than we were several months ago.
Appreciate it, Alex.
Sure.
Kerry Murdoch and then John Hoover.
Alex, I mean, I know you went through it last year. Lincoln's been through it a few times, but it's unique to have to play a team twice every year, and not just a team, but a really good team. I mean, in a championship setting. Is just the unknown of, what might change. Is that the hardest thing about, facing a team twice like this?
Yeah, I think you want to make sure you don't chase ghosts. I mean, you can really go down, a rabbit hole when it comes to those things. Well, we're not going to see this because they did it in the first game, or we're definitely going to see this because 2 weeks ago they did it versus a like coverage or concept versus another opponent. It's kind of like we're talking about recruiting. It's have confidence in the things that you do know, but don't pretend like you know all the things that they're going to do, because again, you could waste preparation time, or get too specific into that one opponent, and then all of a sudden you kind of create a glass house if that doesn't take place on Saturday, whether it's a formation or a play or a combination thereof. But you're right. When you're talking about playing a team twice, obviously in our sport, the only way that happens is in a championship game or possibly a bowl game atmosphere. And so specific to a championship game, and you mentioned it, you're not just going to play someone twice. You're going to play an elite football team for a second time, and that's the difference maker. You don't backdoor into championship football at our level. It's too hard to win. And so, this is, an extreme challenge, as it was, in our particular case a year ago, and as you mentioned, over the last several years for Oklahoma. And so, it's thrilled to, certainly have the opportunity, but you take a little bit of a slice of humble pie, understanding, okay, how difficult the challenge is going to be.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
John Hoover and then Brandon Drum.
Hey, Alex, I want to ask you about your new basketball team, NRK and Jordan Mukes. Those guys, they're still a little bit new or a little bit raw to the sport of football, but you can see the upside, I think, when you watch them play. What was it that drew you to them? And, what is their potential? What is their long-term upside here?
Yeah, and I echo again, the speed potential, size potential. You got to be able to check those boxes because the development aspect of things is so critical in all sports, but in ours in particular, because from 18 to 22, where guys take off from a physical standpoint, athletic standpoint, but we do use multiple sport athletes. That's an evaluation tool, whether it's the track times. This year was a little bit different. So some even more stock in a lot of ways was placed in some of those numbers, and then the ability to watch a guy on a basketball court, and that was one of the evaluation tools we did have this winter. I had a chance to watch Jordan play basketball in January before everything shut down. But the responsibility specific to Jordan, quite frankly, was he had to have his best year this year, and then I give him immense amount of credit. It's one thing to say, okay, I'm an Oklahoma Sooner, I'll get good when I get there, but really made tremendous progress in kind of his second year of varsity football, a guy that we're awfully excited about, position flexibility, and that. And there's a reason they call you coach, and so the ability to develop guys as a football player is something that we need to take a lot of pride in. And I'll say this: you'll never, if the development aspect of things, you can't out recruit poor development to win at the level that the expectation at Oklahoma. So you can say what they are as high school football players, but if you don't develop those individuals, but believe me, you won't get enough good ones to win you enough ball games. And so, can we develop them? And so, again, you got to be able to stand on the table and say those things. And in those particular cases, on the basketball side, had a tremendous amount of confidence in those individuals and our ability to develop them.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Okay, Brandon Drum and then Mason Young.
Alex, can you talk about Clayton Smith, just his overall growth from junior year to senior year?
Yeah.
It seems like he's taken a massive jump. And also talk a little bit about Ethan Downs and Kelvin Gilliam and Danny Stutzman as well, because all those guys seem to have big years. I mean, obviously Kelvin didn't play yet, but the other guys had big years from junior to senior year.
Well, and those are the fun ones, especially if they jump in the boat at a particular time that the last thing you want to do is watch a Friday night game and they don't look like Oklahoma Sooners. And so the pressure's on them, and also the pressure's on us if we're saying that they're the right guys. But credit goes to them. That's an exciting thing, and I think I mentioned it with Jordan is I'll get good when I get there, coach. Like, whoa, and especially in this last year. It's very easy for guys to fall into that trap, because, well, coach, the weight room's closed or we're not in school and all those things. And almost to the man, these guys, you're getting them on a FaceTime or the FaceTime. They're out training. They're sending you videos of them working out, which is just about the coolest thing you can think of. I mean, that's what you want to see. From all those guys, but the Clayton in particular, again, Texas High, they do a tremendous job out there in East Texas, and you're right. I mean, they exploded this year, and I think that's an example. And sometimes, obviously, at the different stages in terms of when things happen, but from a junior year to a senior year, guys develop. It's a development sport. And so excited to now his baseline getting to us is what you're seeing here. Pardon me, on senior film. Same with Danny Stutzman, who might be the most underrated, recruit in the country, in my opinion. And all he did is have some of the most athletic numbers in the country in terms of combine season. And oh, by the way, the film backs it up. So let's take more of those guys. But tremendous year. A dialed-in guy now, and a football dude. So we're certainly excited about him, and it's fun. Again, it's fun on Saturdays when you're sitting in the hotel and you get a chance to watch some of these guys' highlights on Friday nights. Man, that when it looks right, you certainly get thrilled that oh my God, we get to coach him, and that's a fun thing to say. What were the other guys?
Kelvin Gilliam.
Yeah, Kelvin. I mean, you watch him on film, you see twitch, you see, just a physical play, a guy that could play multiple spots. Oh, by the way, Isaiah Thomas, kind of mold and a neat kid, fun to talk to. Probably if you asked all the coaches, maybe the most fun to get on the FaceTime with when he's working at Olive Garden, skipping out to talk to us. But anyway, no, Kelvin, he's everything. He's a prototype. I really believe that, and Ethan Downs as well. I mean, I just look at those guys in the front, and I'm just saying, good Lord, we get a chance to coach these guys, and it makes you awfully thrilled to be at Oklahoma, and awfully thrilled to bring those type of guys in here.
Okay, we'll go to Mason Young and then Daniel Dwyer.
Coach, you moved Robert Barnes back to the secondary last game, almost out of necessity. Now with the big tight end matchups looming Saturday, just how important do you think he'll be to keeping those guys in check, considering the size and physicality that he brings to that position?
Yeah, no, and Rod's been repping at safety this week. It's at this stage in the game that in terms of this late in the season to okay, let's move him back and all that stuff. If we can get some quality reps at safety, so he'll play some safety for us. But no, I mean, I think for all those guys, and Rob would be one of them. What you can't do in this particular, as you say, matchups, is say, okay, well, this is exactly where this individual is going to be, and we're going to put this individual on him. It's just too multiple that way, with shifts, emotions, and size across the board. And oh, by the way, the best tailback in the country this year. So, and probably the best offensive line. And so that becomes, it's a very difficult challenge for us. But he'll be one of those individuals that will rotate in.
Okay, Daniel Dwyer and then James Hale.
Alex, I wanted to ask you, you talk about just kind of exhausting all those different efforts, looking at track times, watching guys on the basketball court, just whatever you can do, given the challenges 2020 has presented. But we see you climbing with this speed D and bringing your scheme in here in year 2. Do you have any concerns about some of the guys that you're bringing in and just not having that face-to-face interaction like you normally would, or being able to evaluate them in person, that there might be some challenges ahead with getting them to fit in? Are there any concerns about maybe the future of the program when you're looking at what you've had to overcome in the recruiting process this year?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. I think with the individuals that we signed, that might, you never have a crystal ball with anybody, but I think with the individuals we signed, I would say, that wouldn't be the case from a concern standpoint. There's some individuals that we didn't sign because concerns in terms of those evaluations. There's certain coaches are very, very comfortable with, okay, there's the video, let's get them on board and see what we got. For us, we try to be very selective that way. And I mentioned it before, just be very honest with ourselves in terms of what we don't know. Because the last thing you want to do is that let's find out day one when they walk on campus that they're lacking in a certain area. And so, I mean, Damon Harmon, for instance, okay, well, go watch him dunk a basketball. Pretty confident he has explosion, and so just those things, for instance, and then and the ability to communicate, just as you and I are doing right now, is so unique, and probably in some ways a little bit more organic, maybe, because it's not so forced. You're not in their living room; they feel more comfortable, and we probably have more conversations because of it. I go back to the quarantine days is they didn't have a whole lot going on, and neither did we. And so we did this more than you think, and probably, and quite frankly, more than a normal year. And so in so many ways, from a personality standpoint, you may even know the kids a little bit more. Now there's obviously, certain things and from whether it's a personality standpoint or communication standpoint that you lack doing it, obviously in this form, but no, but that's certainly factored into some individuals that we didn't take, and you got to live with that. But understanding that it's the players you don't get don't affect you for the next 4 years. It's the ones you bring in, and so kept that in mind throughout the process.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Okay, a couple more here. James Hale and then Keegan Renault.
Alex, Breece Hall is the most productive running back. We've often talked about your effort to try to turn a team into a one-dimensional offense. With his ability, talk about how difficult that's going to be. And Iowa State seems to have a lot of weapons, but if you can stop Hall, you would go a long way in winning that game, probably.
Yeah, and you're realistic. I mean, it's one to have the motive. It's another thing to ultimately get it done. And there won't be, to shut him down, to shut down their offense. It's too quality that way. They're too well coached. Coach Manning does a great job. Tom Manning, obviously Coach Campbell. I mean, that entire staff. You talk about an extremely well coached outfit. They have answers. And they have it in the run game. They have it in the pass game. They have it by using the playmakers they have. They have a quarterback in Purdy that has an extreme confidence about him. And so to circle, as you're saying, to circle one thing. Okay, we'll just take that away. Believe me, they're not going to allow us to. And so that's doesn't mean you don't swing the bat at it, but in the same token, you don't go into it with that frame of mind and say, okay, well, they're not going to do this. They're too good. He's too good to suggest you can get that done. Which means what? It means it's back and forth battle, and we have to make sure we make our lot of plays just like they're able to.
Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
And we'll go to Keegan Renault.
Yeah, Alex, didn't get a chance to ask Lincoln this, but you guys, I don't know if it was offensively, you guys were able to get into Dent, Ryan, and Duncanville, but it seems like the past 2 to 3 years at Oklahoma, they've been getting into places in high schools that they have been able to get into before. How much is that going to help you guys moving forward? These schools have obviously, 5, 6 high-level Division I guys each and every year. Just how important was it for you guys to kind of get in there, maybe break some more doors that you haven't been able to get into?
Yeah, no, that's interesting, especially at as you mentioned, schools of that stature, and what is always important is that you're not looking to take number 10 on their board. Better not be number 1 on your board. So you're talking about recruiting the elite of the elite, and you're talking about elite programs that way. And Billy Bowman, who as I tell him, he may break my heart and play offense. I only talk to him about playing defense, real candidly that way. But so I've gotten to know him over the course of the process. But no, I think for guys to get a map out when nobody does anymore, but go Google I-35, find it, in your hometown and head north. You can't miss us, and it's probably a whole lot closer than you think. So that those programs, being so close, certainly I think it's appropriate on their part to send some guys north as well.